Good afternoon. All right, this really is the graveyard slot. I see sort of your tongues hanging out utterly for lunch. I'll be as quick as I can. It's really lovely to see you. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm always passionate about gatherings like this. Incredible servants who get no thanks. So thank you. You're incredible people. The highlight of my weekend when I was a kid was Saturday afternoon, when my dad would come into the house and he'd say, "Andrew, it's time for you to come and help me wash the car." And I would swell with pride because my dad needed my help to wash the car. I got incredibly excited about it, and I would get on my little yellow cagoule and get the bucket, get the sponge, and get outside. I was only 5 or 6 at the time, so I could only really reach the bumper. It was like, and it was a ladder. We had a ladder. Anybody have a ladder? Yeah. I was not cool at school. I really wasn't. My dad had a ladder, but I would love this, and it's always been a really happy memory of this moment with my dad. And that was great until about 5 years ago. I heard another dad talking about washing the car with their son the previous day, and he said, it was a nightmare. Honestly, he got a stone stuck in the sponge, and he actually scratched some of the paintwork. He kicked the bucket over, and it was like a carpet had been pulled out from under my world. Can you imagine that moment? This beautiful memory that I'd had was just destroyed in a moment as I realized, crumbs, I bet you it took a lot longer than it would have if I wasn't involved. And I bet you the bits that I washed didn't get washed particularly well. And I stopped and I thought, well, why did my dad ask for my help washing the car? And it came to me slowly and profoundly, but beautifully, as it probably already has to you, that my dad asked for my help to wash the car because he simply wanted me to be where he was. Sorry. He wanted me, cheer. He wanted me to be doing what he was doing. He wanted me to be getting up to what he was getting up to. And I truly believe that all across this world, our Heavenly Father is healing the sick, bringing sight to the blind, and releasing the oppressed. And He simply calls us to be there, doing it with Him, helping Him wash the car. He doesn't need our help, sobering, but He wants our help because He wants to get to know us in the context of a shared task. And I put it to you that there are aspects of His character that we will never get to know unless we meet Him in those places. Unless we meet Him in the eyes and the hands and the faces of the poor and the broken and the marginalized of our world. And so many of those people are young people. You don't need me to tell you this. Matthew 25, and as much as you've done it to the least of my brethren, you've done it unto me. This is not extracurricular stuff. This is core to discipleship. This is not a fun summer extra add-on. This is core to discipleship. Getting to know Him in the context of getting to know His broken world and seeing His broken world made whole. And you know as well as I do that young people in the last few years especially have seen this up close. They've seen what happens when they roll up their sleeves, get involved, get engaged in summer projects and in their communities. But they want something more. And I want something more. Martin Luther King said that it's actually quite easy to be the good Samaritan on life's roadside. When you have that one-to-one interaction, you get a buzz from it. Something is special about it. You get a buzz. You see the person changed, and it actually feels quite good. But Martin Luther King said the more difficult thing is to go back to the Jericho Road and work out how to stop any more people getting mugged. That might mean some extra street lighting, some extra security, some more CCTV cameras perhaps on the Jericho Road. And those are mundane discussions made by committees, and those are political discussions. We've spent too long as Christians shouting from the sidelines. We're great at campaigning, we're great at sending the postcards, but we're not so good at rolling up our sleeves and getting stuck in the midst of a system. So often we don't want to actually get involved because we think we couldn't stand with that party. We couldn't join that party because we don't agree with everything that that party stands for. I couldn't sign up to that. I'm sorry, I couldn't be associated with that. If you're sitting here honestly today, can you tell me that you agree with absolutely everything that your spouse believes in? And you certainly don't agree with absolutely everything that your church believes in or that anybody else in your church believes in. yet you find common cause and work together. There is one political party, and I agree with 100% of their policies. And it's called the Andy Flannagan Party. And it has only one member. And sadly, it's me. You see, that's the philosophical thick end of the wedge of where we go with our thinking as Christians sometimes. We're called to cooperate. We're called to bring the kingdom and work with and cooperate those with whom we might not necessarily agree on everything. But that's an incredible missional opportunity. It's an incredible way to see the kingdom come and His will be done. I want to read you something that I wrote because I was asked to write it by Martin not so long ago. The 2020 vision, a vision for what life could be like if we engaged and if young people engaged. This is my vision for what things could look like in 2020. Young people are at the leading edge of an eschatological shift that has spread to the whole church. They see themselves as partners in God's restoration and redemption of all things. They see themselves as agents of the kingdom in the here and now. At youth gatherings, they are commissioned to bring heaven on earth rather than just being cajoled into buying an escape ticket for heaven. They are ruthless in their desire for justice and righteousness to burst forth in schools, supermarkets, youth clubs, and the internet. They refuse the old either-or of denominational or ecclesiological boundaries in favor of both and. They're just as comfortable lobbying a supermarket to stock fairly traded goods as they are for praying for miraculous healing in the aisles of the same supermarket. They're just as comfortable speaking in the town hall as a local councillor as they are speaking in tongues in a brightly coloured prayer room. Local Conservative, Lib Dem, Labour, Green branches are flooded with young Christians who always hold the kingdom above any political ideology, yet realise the need to find common cause, to engage and debate. They're building relationships that don't allow them to be pigeonholed as crazy people. They are listening and learning. They are serving and giving. They are blessing new friends, surprising them with gifts of fairly traded chocolate. They're invaluable because they turn up on time for meetings and they do what they say they'll do before the next meeting. People see evidence of this yeast working through the dough because there's a renewed integrity and enthusiasm about politics. They refuse to make politics about personality or abuse people just because they're from the other side. They campaign and make their case on the doorstep with a smile and a listening ear. This exposure to the reality of people's lives breaks their hearts and inspires much prayer as they walk around estates and suburbs. It's as normal for a Christian young person to be pursuing a life in politics as it is for them to aspire to being a worship leader. This calling is being affirmed and given space to grow. People are astounded that MPs are giving away so much of their money to good causes. The days when they were claiming expenses for garden gnomes are long forgone. Worldwide attention is focused on Westminster because MPs are being miraculously healed in the corridors of power. And legislation is being enacted that speaks up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Do you think that's unrealistic? There was a young person, one of the young people that a whole crew of us used to work with in Luton. I used to live in Luton for 7 years. Any of the Luton posse here? Yeah. There's a young person called Gavin Shuker, one of the young people. And Gavin, after going to a Luton comprehensive school, got a scholarship to go to Cambridge. And while at Cambridge, felt a real call to plant a church back in his hometown of Luton. And he talked 10 or 12 Cambridge graduates into doing that and coming back and planting the church with him, which is a pretty impressive job in itself. And for the last 5 years, they've been there in Luton, simply serving the community, being church, challenging people, connecting with community. And as part of that connection with community, they realized they needed to be involved in the political discussions. So some of them joined the political parties in Luton. Gavin was one of them who joined the party. He's a bit of a web guru, so he quickly became useful. People saw his integrity, people saw his leadership skills, and he got used, did some volunteering, did some work for an MP. Then the sitting MP in Luton actually got struck down in the expenses scandal. And in a tight selection fight, Gavin was selected as the Labour candidate for Luton South. I could go on with this story because it's an exciting story, but the bottom line is the new MP for Luton South is a 28-year-old church leader called Gavin Shuker. who was one of the young people of Luton not that long ago? Could there be people who you connect with, your young people you work with week by week, who are that next generation? I believe Gav's just the first fruits of a generation of people who want to seek justice, who want to get beyond charity to justice and see this world changed and see his kingdom come. Amen. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Please do. There's fantastic youth resources on the website, www.susa.info, on connecting with politics. Great, fun website. Send young people there. Susa.info. Find out who would be in your cabinet. Answer some simple questions. I was surprised by who was in mine.